My name is Sarah, and this is the story I kept inside my heart for far too long. A story of ego, disrespect, silence, and the kind of irony life brings when people mistake humility for weakness. I grew up watching my father work harder than any man I've ever known. He never complained, never asked for anything, never demanded recognition. He always said the same thing. Dignity is silent. Respect is loud. But life isn't always kind to the humble, especially when humility is mistaken for worthlessness. After my mother passed away when I was 12, it was just me and my father. He cooked for me, braided my hair for school, worked extra shifts, so I never felt the absence of a mother. But what I didn't know then was that behind the simplicity of our life, he was building something, slowly, quietly, strategically. He owned shares, investments, and silent partnerships that I would learn about only years later. But he kept everything hidden because he believed that people should love you for who you are, not for what you have. I wish I remembered that lesson when I married Hassan. Hassan was charming at first, successful, confident, and kind. Or at least that's what I wanted to believe. We met at a corporate networking event. He talked a lot about ambition, success, and building a strong financial future. I thought he was hardworking. I thought he valued character. I thought wrong. As soon as we got married, his mask began to slip. His confidence turned into arrogance. His ambition turned into greed. And slowly, silently, I noticed the way he looked at my father, as if he were beneath him, as if my father's quiet nature made him insignificant. I ignored the small remarks, the uncomfortable looks, the forced smiles. I shouldn't have, because everything boiled over on one painful evening, an evening that would change everything for us. What happened that day became the beginning of a downfall he never saw coming, and the rise of the truth he never imagined. The evening started like any other. Hassan had invited a few colleagues over for a semi-formal dinner. He loved showing off our home, our furniture, our decor, believing that material things defined respect. I always felt uncomfortable with that mindset, but I stayed quiet, trying to keep peace. My father arrived exactly on time. He always did. He believed being punctual was a sign of respect. He wore his simple, neatly pressed clothes and carried a small box of sweets, his way of never arriving empty-handed. But when he walked through the door, Hassan didn't smile. Instead, he blinked in surprise and muttered under his breath, loud enough for me to hear, but soft enough to pretend he didn't mean it. "Oh, him." I felt a sting in my chest. Hassan greeted all his colleagues warmly, shaking hands, giving wide smiles, but for my father, he barely nodded. My father, being the gentle soul he was, smiled anyway. "Papa, Beta, you said you needed help with dinner." "I came early." Hassan shrugged. "It's fine. Everything's handled already." But everything wasn't handled. The table wasn't set, the food wasn't ready, and the guests were arriving sooner than expected. My father quietly stepped in anyway, arranging plates, cutting salad, carrying dishes to the table. Not once did he ask for credit. Not once did he complain. Not once did he inconvenience anyone. But Hassan hated it. He hated seeing my father be helpful, he hated my father's simplicity, he hated the respect others naturally showed him. By the time dinner started, I could tell Hassan was irritated. He kept glancing at my father as if he didn't belong. Then the moment happened. The moment that burned itself into my memory forever. One of Hassan's colleagues joked. "Colleague, Hassan, your house is beautiful. Must have cost a fortune." Hassan laughed, leaned back proudly, and said, "Of course it did. I'm the only one working hard here. No support from the family whatsoever, especially from her father. He's retired, basically useless now." My heart dropped. The room fell silent. My father gently placed his spoon down, he didn't speak, he didn't defend himself. He just looked at me with eyes that held disappointment, sadness, and something deeper. Hassan continued, chuckling. "Honestly, if he could actually contribute, things would be easier. But oh well, some people stop being useful after a certain age." I felt my entire world collapse, I waited for someone, anyone, to say something. But no one did. Not even me. My father stood up slowly. "Papa, I think I should leave." And that was the moment everything changed. My father walked toward the door slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. The room was so quiet that even the sound of his shoes on the floor felt too loud. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, but my voice, my courage, everything inside me froze. I should have stood up, I should have spoken, I should have defended him. But I didn't. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was terrified. Terrified of causing a scene, terrified of Hassan's reaction, terrified of the judgment in the room. And so, I stayed silent. My father reached the door and slipped his shoes on. He didn't rush. He didn't shake. He didn't even sigh. He simply adjusted the strap of his wristwatch, an old watch he'd repaired over the years instead of replacing, and opened the door. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. Not to look at Hassan, not to look at the guests, but to look at me. His eyes said everything. "It's okay, but you deserve better." And then he left. The door closed quietly behind him, but to me, it sounded like thunder. The awkward aftermath. For a few seconds, no one said a word. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few cleared their throats. Hassan shook his head as if nothing significant had happened. Hassan, laughing lightly, "Old people are sensitive. He'll be fine. Let's continue." My stomach twisted. His colleague whispered to him. "Colleague. Man, that was a little harsh." Hassan shrugged. Someone had to say it. I excused myself and hurried to the kitchen, hands trembling, breathing uneven, tears threatening to spill. My father was gone, and I let him walk out like that. I leaned on the counter, gripping the edge so tightly my knuckles turned white. In that moment, shame washed over me, not for Hassan's words, but for my silence. The call I didn't expect. After the guests left and the house finally quieted down, I went to my room and sat on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the wall. I wanted to call my father, but I didn't know what to say. I picked up my phone, paused, put it down again. How do you apologize for not protecting the person who protected you your whole life? Just as I was gathering the courage to dial his number, my phone vibrated. It was him. I swallowed. My throat tightened as I answered. Me whispering, "Papa?" "Papa," softly beta. I reached home. "Don't worry." His voice was calm. Too calm. As if he was more concerned about me than himself. "Me, Papa. I'm so sorry." There was a pause, a long one. "Papa. Sarah, you don't need to apologize." Sometimes silence teaches people more than shouting ever can. Tears streamed down my face. But then he said something that made my heart ache even deeper. "Papa, take care of yourself. I'll see you tomorrow, okay?" He didn't mention the insult, that he didn't mention Hassan, that he didn't even mention his own pain. He just made sure I wasn't hurting. That was the man Hassan called useless. Hassan's true colors. When I walked back into the living room, Hassan was scrolling on his phone, completely unfazed. "Me, why did you say that? Why did you talk to Papa like that?" He didn't even look up. "Hassan, because it's true. He's old, Sarah. He can't help us financially. What use is he to us now?" I stared at him, really stared. For the first time, I felt like I didn't recognize the man sitting in front of me. "Me, respect doesn't come from money." Hassan laughed. "Hassan, that's exactly what poor people say." My breath caught in my chest. That was it. That was the moment something inside me shifted, permanently. I walked away from him, realizing that the man I married had a heart full of pride and a soul empty of empathy. The unseen message. Later that night, while Hassan slept, I sat on the balcony wrapped in a shawl, staring at the quiet streetlights. My father's words echoed in my mind. Silence teaches more than shouting ever can. I opened my phone and saw a message from Papa. It wasn't long, just one sentence. "Papa, I'm proud of you no matter what." I broke down. How could a man with so little ego, so much patience, and such a big heart be called useless? But that wasn't the end. Life had its own way of revealing truths. And the truth was about to unfold soon. Loudly, shockingly, and in a way Hassan could never recover from. Because sometimes the quietest people hold the biggest surprises. And my father's surprise was one that would shake Hassan's entire world. The next morning, sunlight streamed across the room, but I felt none of its warmth. My mind was heavy, replaying last night like a loop I couldn't escape. I lay still, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of my own guilt pressing down on my chest. Hassan was still asleep beside me, the soft rise and fall of his chest a rhythm that should have comforted me. Yet it only reminded me of the distance that had grown between us, an invisible wall neither of us wanted to acknowledge. I turned slowly, my eyes tracing the shadows dancing along the walls. Memories of last night's argument flashed like lightning. Harsh words, accusations I barely recognized myself speaking, and the unspoken truths we had both been avoiding. Hassan's silence had been louder than any shout, his gaze sharp, almost accusing, yet full of something I couldn't quite name. Pain, regret, or perhaps love twisted into anger. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap, but the fear of rejection held me frozen. The man beside me, the one I had promised to trust, suddenly felt like a stranger. I could see the outlines of his dreams in the lines of his face, the same dreams we once shared, now buried under years of unspoken resentment. I rose from the bed quietly, careful not to wake him. My bare feet touched the cold wooden floor, sending shivers up my spine. I moved toward the window, drawn to the street below. The city was already alive with noise, the honking of cars, the chatter of vendors setting up their stalls, and the distant wail of a siren cutting through the morning air. Yet amid all this life, I felt suffocated, trapped in a cage of my own making. Hassan stirred behind me, his voice rough with sleep. "Amina?" I didn't answer, not yet. I needed time to gather my thoughts, to confront the storm raging inside me before facing him. "You're awake," he said, his tone softer this time. I didn't mean what I said last night. I swallowed hard, fighting the lump in my throat. "Neither did I whispered, though I wasn't sure if it was true. Words had been thrown carelessly, piercing deeper than we realized. He moved closer, and for a moment, the air between us felt fragile, like a thin glass ready to shatter at the slightest touch. "We can't keep doing this," he murmured. "Pretending everything's fine when it's not. Pretending the past never happened." I nodded, my throat tight. "I know," I said. "But how do we fix something that's been broken for so long?" Hassan's eyes softened, and he reached for my hand. His fingers were warm, grounding me in a way that nothing else had. "We start by being honest. No more secrets, no more lies. One step at a time." For a moment, I allowed myself to believe him. For a fleeting second, the tension that had defined our relationship seemed to dissolve, replaced by a fragile hope. But deep down, I knew the truth was more complicated. The silence that had grown between us was not born overnight. It had roots tangled and deep, nourished by fear, guilt, and misunderstandings. I thought of the night before, of the messages I had received from an unknown number, the cryptic warnings that had shaken me to my core. Someone was watching, someone who knew more about us than they should. My instincts screamed that danger was closer than we realized, and yet I couldn't voice it, afraid of burdening Hassan, afraid of what he might do, or not do, if he knew the truth. "Something's wrong," I finally admitted, my voice barely audible. "I can feel it, like we're being watched." Hassan frowned, concern flashing across his features. "Watched? By who?" "I don't know," I confessed, hugging myself tightly. "But I've felt it for weeks. There are things I haven't told you. Things I should have. And now I think it's catching up with us." He studied me, his gaze intense, searching for answers I wasn't ready to give. After a long silence, he spoke. "Whatever it is, we face it together. No more hiding. Promise me that." Inodid tilstretning to spill. The promise felt like a lifeline, yet a part of me feared that even this bond might not be enough. Later that morning, as Hassan stepped out to handle work matters, I found myself drawn to my old journal, the one I had abandoned years ago when life became too complicated to record. Flipping through the pages, I saw fragments of my past, dreams, fears, and moments of raw vulnerability I had long tried to bury. And then I saw him, Khalid, the man who had vanished without explanation, whose sudden reappearance had shaken me more than I cared to admit. I remembered the night we had met again, the alley, the whispered warnings, the urgency in his eyes. His presence had stirred something inside me, a mix of fear and longing, an unresolved tension that refused to be ignored. He had spoken of secrets, of a force manipulating our lives from the shadows. And I had to admit, it made sense. Too many coincidences, too many moments that felt orchestrated, too many unanswered questions. As I pondered this, my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. My heart skipped. The text was simple, yet chilling. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. It was no longer paranoia. This was real. Someone was warning me, and the warning carried weight. My thoughts immediately went to Hassan. I couldn't bring myself to tell him, not yet. The fear of exposing him to danger, or worse, losing him, paralyzed me. The day passed in a haze. Every noise, every shadow seemed amplified, echoing the threat I felt but couldn't see. By evening, the sense of urgency grew unbearable. I needed answers, and I knew where to find them. Khalid. I left a note for Hassan, explaining only that I had to step out and would return soon. The truth, I decided, would wait until I was certain of my next move. The streets were alive with the evening crowd, but my focus was elsewhere, guided by a single, unrelenting thought. Uncover the truth before it's too late. The alley where I had first seen him was quiet, almost unnaturally so. The candlelight flickered in the window, signaling that someone awaited me. My pulse quickened as I approached, memories of our last encounter rushing back with every step. "Khalid," I whispered, and the figure emerged from the shadows. His face was as serious as I remembered, eyes scanning the street for threats. "You came," he said, relief and urgency mingling in his voice. "There's no time. They're closing in faster than we thought." I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. I had to. I need to know what's happening, why this is all happening to us. He nodded, pulling me into a side alley where the noise of the city faded. "You deserve the truth," he said. "But it's dangerous. Once you know, there's no going back. And his voice dropped. They will stop at nothing." I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing on me. "I don't care. I need to know." Khalid's eyes softened, a flicker of admiration crossing his features. "Very well," he said, pulling a small folder from his coat. Inside were documents, photographs, and notes that painted a picture of a network more sinister than I could have imagined. A web of manipulation reaching into our lives long before we were even aware of it. As I sifted through the evidence, my mind raced. Every unanswered question, every unexplained event, every fragment of our lives that had seemed random now fell into place. And the realization hit me. Our struggles, our heartbreaks, our fears, they had never been accidents. This is unbelievable," I murmured, my hands trembling as I clutched the folder. "Why us? Why target us?" Khalid shook his head. "Because you were close to something they didn't want exposed. Something powerful. And now they fear what you know." Fear, adrenaline, and resolve mingled inside me. I knew then that my life would never be the same. Whatever choice I made now would define not just my future, but the safety and lives of those I loved. "We need a plan," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "We can't run blindly. We have to strike smart." Khalid nodded, a small, determined smile forming. "Exactly. And for that, we'll need allies, and secrets kept closer than ever before. One wrong step, and it's over." The night stretched ahead, full of uncertainty, danger, and the promise of revelations that could shatter everything. But for the first time in months, I felt alive, aware of the stakes, and ready to confront the shadows of our past. Because the man behind the silence was no longer just a memory. He was a warning, a guide, and perhaps the key to everything we had lost, and everything we still had to fight for. The city slept, or so it seemed. Beneath the calm, an invisible current of danger pulsed through the streets, threading its way into the lives of those who thought they were safe. And tonight, Amina would learn that the enemy wasn't just outside. It was closer than she had ever imagined. The night air was cold and sharp, slicing through the fabric of my jacket as I walked briskly alongside Khalid. His hand was firm on my shoulder, guiding me through the labyrinth of backstreets and shadowed alleys. Every instinct screamed caution, yet the urgency in his eyes told me there was no turning back. "They know we're here," Khalid whispered, barely audible over the soft hum of the city. "They've been tracking our movements since we left your apartment. One wrong step and we're done." I swallowed hard, my pulse racing. The thought of being hunted chilled me more than the night wind ever could. All my life, I had thought danger was something distant, something only that happened in stories. Now it was real, tangible, closing in with every heartbeat. Who are they?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my attempts to steady it. Khalid glanced at me, his eyes shadowed with urgency. "They're part of something much bigger than either of us. A network of people who manipulate events, control information, and erase threats before anyone even knows they exist. And you've stumbled into their crosshairs." The words sank in like stones in water. I felt my knees weaken, but I refused to show it. "Why me? Why us?" Khalid shook his head. "You were never supposed to find out. But you did, and now they see you as a liability. We have to act fast, before they make their move." We slipped into a small, abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city, its rusted doors groaning as we entered. Inside, shadows stretched across the cracked concrete floors, and dust hung thick in the air. Khalid led me to a corner where a dim lamp cast a soft glow over a makeshift table covered with papers, photographs, and a laptop. "This is our base for now," he said, gesturing to the scattered documents. "We have to piece together who's behind this and what they want. Time is not on our side." I bent over the table, my eyes scanning the contents. Photographs of people I didn't recognize, maps marked with strange symbols, and lists of names that seemed meaningless, until Khalid pointed out one. "See this?" he said, tapping a name circled in red. "She's the one feeding information to them. She's been watching you for months, waiting for the right moment." I frowned, trying to make sense of it. "A spy? Someone inside their lives." Khalid nodded gravely. "Exactly. And she's clever. She blends in, pretends to care, and manipulates everything from the shadows. If we're not careful, she'll use Hassan, or anyone we trust, against us." My stomach twisted. The thought that someone we knew, someone close, could betray us made my skin crawl. I thought of my apartment, of Hassan, of the small moments of trust we had shared. Could any of it have been real? Or had it all been orchestrated? "We have to move fast," Khalid continued, urgency sharpening his tone. "They're planning something, and I can feel it. Something big. And if we don't uncover their plan before they strike, it'll be too late." I clenched my fists, fear giving way to determination. "Then let's do it. We find them first." For hours, we pored over the files, connecting names, dates, and locations. Every revelation added weight to the growing tension, and every discovery brought more questions than answers. The network was vast, more intricate than I could have imagined. And the closer we got to the truth, the more dangerous it became. By midnight, Khalid leaned back, exhaustion written across his face. "We're close," he said. "I can feel it. But we need to be smart. One slip, one careless move, and it's over." I nodded, though my thoughts kept returning to Hassan. Was he safe? Was I putting him in danger by even being here? The thought of him falling victim to this unseen enemy made my chest tighten. Yet there was no choice now. Knowledge was power, and the more I knew, the better chance we had of survival. A sudden noise made us both freeze. A soft shuffle, barely audible, echoed through the warehouse. My heart pounded as Khalid moved toward the door, signaling me to stay back. "You think it's them?" I whispered. Khalid shook his head. "Not yet, but we can't ignore it. Stay behind me." He moved silently, like a shadow, to the entrance. I followed as quietly as possible, my senses heightened, every nerve alert. And then, from the doorway, a figure emerged. It was a woman, her face partially obscured by a hood, eyes sharp and calculating. She froze when she saw us, then smiled faintly. "So this is where you've been hiding," she said, her voice smooth but laced with menace. Khalid stepped in front of me, protective. "Who are you?" The woman tilted her head, studying us. "Someone who knows too much," she said cryptically. "And someone who can either help you or destroy you." I felt a chill run down my spine. Every instinct told me not to trust her, yet something in her eyes suggested she held vital information. "What do you want?" Khalid demanded. "I want the truth to come out," she replied. "But truth comes at a price. Are you willing to pay it?" I exchanged a glance with Khalid, my pulse racing. The night had already thrown us into chaos, and now this unknown ally, or enemy, was offering a choice that could change everything. "Yes," I said finally, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at me. "We want the truth, no matter the cost." The woman nodded slowly. "Good. Then listen carefully. The network controlling your lives is not just a criminal organization. It's something bigger, political, financial, and personal. And their leader is someone you've known all along." My breath caught. Someone we had trusted, someone close? The revelation was almost too much to bear. "Who?" I whispered. The woman's eyes glinted. "I'll show you. But first, you need to be ready. Once you see the extent of their power, there's no turning back." Khalid and I exchanged a look, the gravity of her words sinking in. The fight ahead would be dangerous, unpredictable, and possibly deadly. But we had no choice. We were already in the storm, and running was no longer an option. The woman reached into her coat and handed us a small device. "This will lead you to the first key location. Memorize everything you see. Trust no one along the way. And above all, never underestimate them." I took the device, feeling the weight of the mission pressing down on my shoulders. For the first time, I understood that our lives, our choices, and our very existence were part of a game far larger than we had ever imagined. As we prepared to leave, the woman's voice stopped us. "One more thing. Someone you love is in danger right now. Move carefully. Every second counts." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. Hassan. I thought of him immediately, hope and fear colliding in a chaotic storm. I had to protect him, even as we pursued the shadows of the enemy. Outside, the city seemed calm, the streets empty under the pale light of the moon. But I knew better. The calm was deceptive. Danger lurked in every corner, and the hidden enemy was closer than ever. Khalid gripped my hand, a silent promise that we would face whatever came together. "Are you ready?" he asked. I nodded, determination hardening within me. "I'm ready. Let's end this." And with that, we disappeared into the night, shadows among shadows, hunted yet determined. The hidden enemy was waiting, but for the first time, I felt like we might just have a chance. Because tonight, the game had changed. And we were no longer the players, they were. The deeper you dig, the darker the truth becomes. And some truths are better left buried. But tonight, Amina would discover that the person she trusted most was the very force manipulating her life, and nothing would ever be the same. The night had a strange stillness, the kind that makes every sound echo louder than it should. Khalid and I moved cautiously through the deserted streets, the device the mysterious woman had given us glowing faintly in my hand. Each step was deliberate, each shadow a potential threat. My mind raced, not just with fear, but with questions that had no answers yet. "Are you sure this will work?" I whispered. Khalid glanced at me, eyes narrowed. "It's our only lead. The device will guide us to the first safe house. After that, we find the next piece of the puzzle. But we have to stay alert. They'll try to intercept us." I nodded, gripping the device tighter. A part of me wanted to turn back, to run from the danger that seemed to consume every aspect of our lives. But I couldn't, not anymore. Too much had happened. Too much was at stake. Hassan. Khalid. My own life. I had no choice but to move forward. The streets grew narrower, darker, the occasional flickering street lamp doing little to illuminate the path ahead. We turned a corner, and a sudden noise made us both freeze, a faint rustle from an alleyway. My heart leaped into my throat. "Stay close," Khalid whispered. A figure emerged, moving swiftly, too fast to clearly identify. In an instant, Khalid tackled them to the ground, a struggle breaking out that left me frozen with shock. Within moments, Khalid pinned the person, and the hood fell back. It was a young woman, her face pale, eyes wide with fear. She gasped, struggling. "Please, don't." Khalid's grip tightened. "Who sent you? Who's watching us?" I don't know," she stammered, voice trembling. "I was just told to follow you. Please don't hurt me." I stepped forward, trying to calm both of them. "We're not here to hurt you, but we need information. Do you know anything about the network?" She nodded frantically. "Yes. I've been tracking movements, sending reports, but I didn't know the full plan." "I swear." Khalid released her, and she collapsed onto the ground, sobbing. "They're planning something big." "NN." Her voice faltered. "One of your own, he's behind it." I froze. One of our own. My mind went immediately to Hassan. Could it be? No, it couldn't. But deep down, a cold dread began to settle in my chest. Khalid frowned. "Explain." "Who?" The woman shook her head violently. I can't say here. It's too dangerous. You have to see for yourself. Go to the old observatory, tonight. That's where the truth will be revealed." Before I could respond, she disappeared into the shadows, vanishing as mysteriously as she had appeared. Khalid and I exchanged a glance, the weight of her words pressing down like a heavy stone. The observatory. I remembered it from childhood visits, abandoned now, crumbling, but high above the city with a view that stretched for miles. And tonight, it would be the stage for a revelation I wasn't sure I was ready for. We reached the observatory after what felt like hours of careful navigation through dark streets. The building loomed ahead, its silhouette jagged against the moonlit sky. Inside, dust motes floated through the air, disturbed only by our footsteps. Khalid moved to the center of the main chamber, and I followed, scanning the shadows. A single figure stood at the far end, illuminated by a faint beam of moonlight coming through a broken window. "Hassan," I breathed, my heart catching in my throat. He turned slowly, a faint, almost unreadable smile on his face. But the warmth was gone from his eyes, replaced by something I couldn't identify, calculated, cold, and unrecognizable. "Amina," he said softly. "I knew you'd come." I felt the world shift beneath me. Every memory, every moment we had shared now seemed tainted. "Hassan, why?" My voice trembled with a mixture of betrayal, fear, and disbelief. He stepped closer, hands raised in a gesture that could have been comforting or threatening. "You don't understand," he said. "Everything I've done for us. For our survival. For what's coming." Khalid moved beside me, protective, eyes sharp. What's coming? You've been working with them? All this time. Hassan's gaze flicked to him. I had no choice. They're powerful, more than you can imagine. And they forced me to follow their orders, to manipulate events, to keep you safe in a way you'll never understand. The words barely made sense, but my mind screamed against them. Safe? You call betrayal and lies safety. He looked down, shame flickering across his face. I had to. They threatened everyone I love. I couldn't risk losing you, or anyone else. I thought I was protecting you. I was wrong. I didn't know how else to stop them. Tears blurred my vision. The man I loved, the man I trusted, had been part of the very network that had haunted my life. The realization hit like a knife. Everything I believed in, every sense of security shattered. Khalid stepped forward, anger flashing in his eyes. You're one of them? You're the reason we're in danger? Hassan shook his head vehemently. No. I wanted to stop them from inside. I've been gathering information, feeding it carefully, trying to undermine them without exposing myself. Every action I took, every lie I told, was to protect you. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, betrayal, confusion, but also a faint glimmer of hope. Could it be true? Could Hassan really have been fighting from within? The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Finally, I spoke. Then prove it. Show us everything. No more secrets. No more lies. We have to end this together. Hassan nodded slowly, pulling a folder from his coat. Everything you need to know is here. Names, locations, plans, the entire network. And the leader, you won't believe it. I took a deep breath, my hands shaking as I opened the folder. Photographs, documents, and coded messages spilled out. And then I saw it, a name, a face, one I never expected. Someone I trusted, someone close to all of us. My heart stopped. The true mastermind was someone in our inner circle, someone we had never suspected. And now, the final battle was no longer just about survival. It was about confronting betrayal at the highest level. Khalid's voice broke the silence. We have to move. Now. They won't wait for us to prepare. Once they know we have this information, it's over. I nodded, determination surging through me. Then let's finish this. Tonight. No more running. No more hiding. Hassan joined us, his eyes meeting mine, a silent apology in his gaze. I'm sorry for everything, but we can still stop them. Together. As we left the observatory, the city stretched beneath us, oblivious to the storm brewing in its shadows. Danger, betrayal, and secrets waited at every corner. But for the first time, I felt ready. Ready to face the truth, ready to fight, and ready to confront the masked enemy who had haunted our lives for so long. Because tonight, the lines between friend and foe blurred. And only those willing to face the ultimate betrayal would survive. The closer you get to the truth, the more dangerous it becomes. Tonight, Amina would learn that every ally carries a secret, every step hides a trap, and the web of deception is far more tangled than she could have imagined. The night was thick with tension, the city below quiet but alive with the hum of unseen danger. Khalid, Hassan, and I moved cautiously, the documents revealing the mastermind's identity burning a hole in my mind. Every shadow seemed suspicious, every passing figure potentially a spy sent to stop us. Khalid led the way, his eyes scanning the darkened streets. We stick to the plan. The safe houses, the rendezvous points, they're all marked here. But stay alert. They're expecting resistance. I nodded, trying to steady my nerves. Every step I took felt like walking on a knife's edge. The betrayal from Hassan had been a shock, yet seeing his commitment to undo the damage offered a fragile hope. Could we trust him completely now? My instincts screamed yes, but caution whispered a warning I couldn't ignore. The first safe house was abandoned, its windows boarded, and its doors hanging crooked on their hinges. Inside, we found another folder left by the mysterious woman who had guided us, its contents carefully arranged for us to discover. Maps, codes, and notes detailed surveillance points, escape routes, and contacts who could be trusted. Or so it seemed. Every move has to be calculated, Khalid said, pointing to the maps. One wrong step, and they'll know we're close. I studied the notes carefully. The network had eyes everywhere. Restaurants, street vendors, even neighbors. We couldn't trust anyone outside our immediate group. The realization was suffocating, but there was no turning back. The truth demanded exposure. Hours passed as we deciphered the codes and connected dots. Then, a sudden vibration from the device reminded us we weren't alone. A location flashed on the screen, the final point, the abandoned industrial warehouse on the outskirts of the city. "This is it," Khalid said grimly. "The final confrontation starts here." I felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with fear. The warehouse was known for its labyrinthine corridors and multiple exit points, perfect for ambushes. But we had no choice. The mastermind had to be confronted tonight, or everything would be lost. We approached the warehouse silently, slipping through shadows as if the darkness itself was our ally. Every creak of metal, every whisper of wind against broken glass heightened the tension. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, each beat marking a countdown to the inevitable confrontation. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of steel beams and machinery, long abandoned but eerily intact. The air smelled of rust and oil, mingling with a faint scent of fear. And then we saw him, or rather her. The mastermind stepped from behind a stack of crates, the identity revealed in full. It was someone we had trusted, someone who had always been close enough to manipulate events without raising suspicion. "You came," the mastermind said, voice calm, almost mocking. I wondered how long it would take. I swallowed hard, the betrayal burning fresh. "Why?" I demanded, voice shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. "Why betray us? Everything we believed, everything we trusted. Was it all a lie?" The mastermind smiled faintly. "Not a lie. A necessary plan. You see, control is power, and the world doesn't allow weakness. I've been shaping events, guiding outcomes, ensuring the survival of those who matter, and eliminating the rest. You were in the way." Hassan stepped forward, anger flashing in his eyes. "You manipulated everything, everyone we loved. And for what? Power." "Power?" the mastermind repeated, tilting their head. "No, survival. Sometimes survival requires sacrifices. And tonight, you'll understand exactly how far one must go to win." The tension exploded as guards emerged from the shadows, armed and prepared. Khalid immediately moved to position us behind crates, assessing the layout. "We can't fight them all head-on," he whispered. "We need strategy." I felt fear clawing at my chest, but it was tempered with determination. We had come too far to turn back now. Hassan, despite his past betrayal, moved to flank me, signaling silently that he was still with us. Together, we navigated the steel maze, moving swiftly, aware that every second counted. Shots rang out, echoing through the vast chamber. Bullets pinged against metal and concrete as we ducked behind cover. Khalid returned fire, precise and calculated, neutralizing a few guards while Hassan and I moved closer to the mastermind. "This ends tonight," I shouted over the chaos, my voice carrying a mixture of fury and resolve. "No more lies. No more manipulation." The mastermind laughed, a sound cold and unyielding. "You think this ends here? The game is far from over. But I admire your courage, foolish as it is." We pressed forward, moving through the maze of crates and shadows, forcing the mastermind back, step by step. Each move revealed more of their network, communications devices, encrypted files, evidence of manipulation that spanned months, even years. The scale of the betrayal and control was staggering. Finally, we cornered the mastermind near the central control panel, their options narrowing. Hassan stepped forward, anger and pain etched into his features. "It ends now. No more games." The mastermind's smile faltered, but their composure remained. "You think you've won? You've only scratched the surface. There are others who will rise where I fall." I felt the weight of those words, a chilling reminder that even with this victory, the fight wasn't truly over. But right now, we had to survive, and we had to confront the person who had orchestrated our suffering. With coordinated precision, Khalid disabled the remaining guards, while Hassan and I secured the mastermind. The confrontation was tense, every movement deliberate, every word a potential weapon. Finally, we had them cornered, powerless, and exposed. I stared into the face of betrayal, searching for any trace of humanity. "It's over," I said, voice trembling but firm. "No more lies. No more control." The mastermind's eyes held a flicker of regret, but it was fleeting. "Perhaps," they said softly, "for now. But remember, the web of deception is endless. The world isn't kind to the weak. Survive if you can." With that, we bound them, securing the evidence that would finally expose the network. I exhaled, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins, realizing the enormity of what we had just done. Outside, the first hints of dawn began to paint the horizon, the city waking to a new day, oblivious to the storm we had just survived. Khalid, Hassan, and I stood together, bruised, exhausted, but alive, and for the first time, I felt a sense of cautious hope. Is it really over? Hassan asked, voice soft, almost vulnerable. For now, I replied, looking at the dawn breaking over the city. But we've won a battle, not the war. And we'll be ready for whatever comes next. Khalid nodded, eyes scanning the horizon. We've taken the first step. The rest is up to us, and staying one step ahead of them. They won't stop until they get what they want. I breathed deeply, letting the cool morning air fill my lungs. The battle had been won, but the war of shadows, betrayal, and survival was far from finished. Yet I felt stronger, more determined than ever. We had faced deception, uncovered betrayal, and survived the storm. And now we would rise. Because in a world of lies and manipulation, trust was a weapon, and we had reclaimed it. The war was far from over. The network still thrived, its tendrils stretching into every corner of the city. Tonight, Amina, Khalid, and Hassan would make their move. An all-or-nothing strike that could finally shatter the web of deceit or destroy them all. The city was cloaked in darkness, the kind that hides secrets and amplifies fear. I stood atop a deserted rooftop, the wind whipping through my hair, my heart hammering like a drum. Beside me, Khalid checked the equipment, while Hassan reviewed the plans one final time. Every detail, every contingency had to be perfect. One mistake, and the entire operation would fail. Are you ready? Khalid asked, his eyes scanning the streets below, sharp and alert. I nodded, forcing my fear into the back of my mind. As ready as I'll ever be. Tonight, we end this. Hassan placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. We do this together. No secrets. No hesitation. The network's headquarters was a heavily guarded building in the industrial district, a fortress of concrete, steel, and cameras. But we had intelligence, gathered painstakingly over weeks, and the element of surprise. Still, the enormity of what we were about to do pressed down on me like a mountain. We moved silently through the shadows, using alleyways and rooftops to approach the building. Every movement was measured, every sound amplified by the night. My pulse raced, yet beneath it all was a steady determination. This was the moment we had prepared for, the culmination of months of fear, betrayal, and discovery. As we reached the perimeter, Khalid handed me a small device. This disables the security cameras for exactly 60 seconds. We have to move fast. I nodded, taking a deep breath. We can do this. Inside, the headquarters was a maze of corridors, security doors, and watchful guards. We used the 60-second window to slip past the cameras, moving as one. Each corner we turned felt like stepping deeper into the heart of danger. Suddenly, a guard appeared around the corner. Khalid reacted instantly, taking him down silently. My hands shook as I passed, adrenaline and fear battling for control. Every step brought us closer, but the danger felt tangible, almost suffocating. Finally, we reached the central control room, the nerve center of the network. Screens flickered with feeds from cameras across the city, documents and plans sprawled across desks. And there, seated calmly behind the largest monitor, was the mastermind we had captured weeks ago, now chained but smirking. Welcome, they said, voice dripping with contempt. I see you've decided to finish what we started. Enough games, Hassan said, his voice steady despite the tension. This ends tonight. The mastermind laughed softly. Oh, I don't think you understand. Capturing me was the easy part. The network doesn't rely on me alone. Destroying it will cost you more than you can imagine. I felt a chill. Khalid and Hassan exchanged worried glances. Then we make them pay for every secret, every lie, every life they've controlled, I said, voice firm. We split up, each of us taking a task. Hassan would secure the files and gather evidence. Khalid would handle the remaining guards and security systems, and I would confront the mastermind directly. The chaos erupted quickly. Guards poured into the room, and we fought with precision and coordination honed by months of preparation. Shots rang out, glass shattered, and alarms blared. I ducked behind a desk, my pulse racing as I assessed the situation. The mastermind watched calmly, almost enjoying the spectacle. Do you really think this will end it? They sneered as I approached. Even if you destroy me, the web remains. It's everywhere, inside your homes, your friends, your work, impossible to eradicate completely. I squared my shoulders. Then we take it down piece by piece. Tonight, we start with you. With swift action, I grabbed the chains binding the mastermind and forced them to their feet. Every movement was deliberate, calculated, and careful. I needed information, not just revenge. Tell us everything. Who else is involved? Where they are hiding? No more secrets. For a moment they laughed, but then their eyes hardened. You're brave, foolish, but brave. Very well. I'll give you the names, the locations, but you'll have to trust no one else. One wrong step, and everything falls apart. Hassan and Khalid returned, having neutralized the last of the guards and secured the main files. Together, we compiled the evidence, names, accounts, hidden operations, and contacts. The scope of the network was staggering, far larger than any of us imagined. But with this knowledge, we had a chance. The mastermind's calm demeanor began to crack as they realized the depth of our preparation. You think you've won, they spat, but the web adapts. You cannot destroy it completely. I looked at them, anger and resolve mingling. Maybe not completely, but we'll take it apart piece by piece. And tonight, you're the first piece. With that, we secured them and prepared to leave the building. The evidence we had gathered would be enough to dismantle the network systematically. Every contact, every operation exposed. Every person manipulated, freed. Outside, the city had begun to stir with dawn's early light. The tension in my chest eased slightly, but I knew the fight wasn't truly over. There would always be remnants, always be shadows lurking in the corners. But for the first time, we had hope. Khalid placed a hand on my shoulder. We did it. This is the start of the end. Hassan nodded, his eyes meeting mine with gratitude and a silent apology for the past. Thank you for trusting me again. I won't let you down. I exhaled deeply, letting the morning air fill my lungs. The battle was won, but the war against manipulation, deceit, and hidden enemies would continue. Yet standing there, with the mastermind captured and the network exposed, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. Control over our lives, our choices, and our destiny. And as the sun rose over the city, painting the skyline in hues of gold and pink, I realized that sometimes the fight isn't just against enemies outside. It's against the shadows within ourselves. And tonight, we had emerged victorious. Even when the enemy falls, their shadows linger. Tonight, Amina, Khalid, and Hassan would learn that victory is only temporary, and that true danger often comes from those you least expect. The city was quiet, deceptively calm, as if the chaos of the past weeks had been nothing more than a dream. But the sense of unease clung to me like a second skin. Every rustle, every distant footstep felt amplified. We had captured the mastermind and exposed the network, but I knew better. The remnants were still out there, waiting, planning, and thirsty for revenge. Khalid checked the perimeter once again, his eyes scanning the rooftops. We can't let our guard down, he said, voice low. They've lost their leader, but the organization doesn't die with one person. There are loyalists who will act, and they're dangerous. Hassan nodded, tension evident in his posture. They'll come for us sooner or later. We have to be ready. No mistakes. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady my nerves. The thought of another attack made my stomach twist, but I couldn't allow fear to control me. Not after everything we had been through. For days, we fortified our safe house, checking every entry point, securing our communications, and setting contingencies in case of an attack. But despite every precaution, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, whispering threats that only I could hear. It started with small signs. A car parked too long across the street, a shadow flickering past a window, the faintest sound of a door closing when no one had entered. My instincts screamed that the remnants were mobilizing, and fast. Something's coming, I said one evening, pacing the room. I can feel it. They're preparing. Khalid looked up from the maps spread across the table. I've been tracking communications. There's unusual activity in 3 sectors. They're coordinating. You're right, we don't have much time. Hassan leaned against the wall, tension evident in the set of his jaw. Then we strike first. Don't wait for them to make the move. We take the initiative. I hesitated. Every fiber of me wanted to hide, to retreat and survive. But I knew that wasn't who I was anymore. Survival without action was meaningless. Agreed, I said finally. We go on the offensive. But we have to be strategic. One wrong move. And it's over, Khalid finished grimly. The night of the first strike arrived, thick with tension and anticipation. We moved under the cover of darkness, navigating the city like shadows ourselves, guided by intelligence gathered from the captured files and the remnants' communication patterns. Every corner, every alley felt alive with hidden threats. Our first target was a warehouse serving as a hub for the Loyalists, a place where supplies, information, and operatives were coordinated. We approached quietly, assessing entrances and patrols. The network had underestimated us, but we couldn't rely on that. Precision and timing would be everything. Khalid disabled the cameras, and Hassan led the breach, moving like a shadow among shadows. I followed, heart pounding, hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Inside, chaos erupted. Guards scrambled, realizing too late that we had anticipated their every move. The fight was brutal but calculated. Every strike, every maneuver was designed to minimize risk and maximize impact. Khalid's precision neutralized threats efficiently, while Hassan secured critical intelligence and ensured we maintained control. And then we encountered the unexpected, a trap. A hidden door swung open, releasing a wave of reinforcements from the Loyalists. We were surrounded, pressed on all sides. My heart raced, but training, instinct, and determination guided me. "We have to split," Khalid shouted. "Take different exits and regroup at the secondary safe house." I nodded, adrenaline sharpening my focus. Hassan and I broke off, moving through the labyrinthine corridors, using shadows and cover to evade the sudden wave of attackers. Gunfire echoed behind us, shouts filling the warehouse like thunder. At one point, I was trapped, cornered by two operatives. I fought with everything I had, using strategy and agility to neutralize them. My breath came in ragged gasps, but I refused to falter. Every move, every decision carried the weight of our survival. Finally, Hassan and I reached the secondary safe house, battered but alive. Khalid was already there, securing the perimeter. The relief was brief. We knew this was only the beginning. Over the following days, the battle escalated. The Loyalists retaliated with calculated attacks on supply lines, safe houses, and anyone connected to us. The city became a chessboard of danger, with every move fraught with risk. But we had something they didn't: unity, trust, and determination forged in fire. I found myself reflecting on the journey, the betrayals, the losses, the moments of fear that had tested me to my core. Hassan's loyalty, Khalid's unwavering support, and my own resolve had transformed us from hunted victims into formidable strategists. The shadows that had once terrified me now felt like tools, opportunities to outmaneuver an enemy who believed they controlled everything. And then came the final confrontation. Intelligence led us to a fortified building, the last known operational hub of the network remnants. We approached carefully, knowing that the outcome of this strike would define the future. Inside, we encountered fierce resistance. Operatives were ready, expecting retaliation, but we moved with precision and coordination. Every room, every hallway, became a battlefield. Gunfire and shouting echoed through the corridors, punctuated by the clash of strategy and desperation. At the heart of the building, we found the remaining leaders, their confidence shaken but not broken. They had underestimated us, underestimated the will forged by months of survival and relentless pursuit of truth. Hassan moved to secure them while Khalid and I coordinated the neutralization of remaining threats. It was brutal, precise, and exhausting. But step by step, we dismantled the organization, severing their communication, capturing the leaders, and securing evidence that would ensure they could never regroup. As dawn broke, the battle finally ended. The remnants of the network were defeated, captured, or neutralized. The city breathed a quiet sigh, unaware of the storm that had raged in its shadows and the heroes who had fought in silence. We stood together on a rooftop, overlooking the city. The air was crisp, tinged with the promise of a new beginning. Khalid exhaled slowly, leaning against the railing. "It's done. For now, at least. The web is gone." Hassan placed a hand on my shoulder, eyes tired but steady. "We did it. Together." I looked at both of them, gratitude and determination mingling in my gaze. We survived the shadows. We faced betrayal, danger, and fear, and we came out stronger. But we have to remain vigilant. Darkness never truly disappears. Khalid nodded. "True, but we've proven we can survive it, even thrive in it. That's what matters." I breathed deeply, letting the morning air fill my lungs. The war against deception, manipulation, and hidden enemies had reached a decisive turning point. The network was dismantled, the leaders captured, and the city finally free from the invisible chains that had bound it. Yet I knew the lessons of the past weeks would never leave me. Trust, vigilance, and courage were the weapons that had carried us through, and they would be the foundation for the life we would rebuild together. Because in the shadows, danger always lingers, but so does resilience. And as long as we stood together, no web of deceit could ever ensnare us again. The battle had ended, but the echoes of war lingered. Victory didn't erase fear, betrayal, or loss. It only illuminated the scars left behind. Tonight, Amina would discover that surviving the storm was only the beginning of rebuilding a life shattered by shadows. The city lay beneath a pale morning sky, streets quiet, almost peaceful, as if the chaos of the past weeks had been nothing more than a distant nightmare. But peace was fragile, a thin veneer over the scars left by the hidden wars we had fought. I walked through the streets with Khalid and Hassan, moving toward the office that had become our temporary headquarters. The files, evidence, and intelligence we had recovered from the network were now securely stored, ready to dismantle the organization for good. But even as I felt a sense of relief, a gnawing unease tugged at me. "You okay?" Hassan asked softly, his eyes on me. I forced a smile. "I will be. It's just a lot to process. Everything that happened, everything we lost, and what we still have to rebuild." Khalid, always practical, interjected. "Processing is fine. But remember, the city still relies on us to make sure the network doesn't rise again. We can't be careless." I nodded, appreciating his concern. The network might have been broken, but fragments and loyalists could always remain. Vigilance was a lifelong task, not a momentary relief. The office was quiet, illuminated by the soft glow of early morning light filtering through dusty windows. Files and digital evidence sprawled across tables, each document a piece of a puzzle that had cost us sleepless nights, endless risk, and lives we could never fully protect. Hassan began organizing the files, scanning them, and preparing reports for law enforcement and international agencies. "We've got to be thorough," he said, his voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. One mistake could allow them to regroup. I watched him work, realizing how much he had changed. The man who had once been trapped in the web of the mastermind's control was now a vital partner in undoing it. The guilt that had weighed heavily on him before had transformed into determination, and I admired his resilience. Khalid, meanwhile, monitored communications and coordinated with local authorities, ensuring the captured leaders were processed and their operations fully dismantled. His efficiency and focus were remarkable, yet I could see the toll it had taken. The weight of responsibility was evident in the slight slump of his shoulders, the occasional pause as he reviewed a particularly sensitive file. Days turned into weeks as we worked tirelessly to finalize the dismantling of the network. Every piece of evidence was scrutinized, every operation exposed, and every contact severed. Slowly, the city began to breathe freely again, unaware of the invisible storm that had nearly consumed it. But even in these quieter moments, the emotional aftermath was impossible to ignore. I found myself staring at my reflection one evening, noticing how tired I looked, how the stress and fear had etched subtle lines into my face. The nights of terror, betrayal, and relentless pursuit had left marks that no sleep or calm cityscape could erase. Hassan noticed my silence. "You're carrying too much," he said gently. "We all are. But we survived. That's something to remember." I nodded, allowing myself a moment to acknowledge the truth in his words. Surviving wasn't just about physical safety. It was about enduring the emotional and psychological weight of everything we had faced. And while we had survived, we were not the same people who had begun this journey. Despite the victories, some wounds could not heal completely. Memories of betrayal lingered, moments of fear replayed vividly, and shadows of the past haunted every corner. Hassan and I had to navigate our renewed trust carefully, acknowledging the mistakes of the past while focusing on the present. "Khalid," I said one morning as he reviewed the final intelligence reports, "how do we know it's truly over? What if someone else picks up the pieces?" Khalid's eyes, usually sharp and confident, softened slightly. "We can't know for certain, but we've done everything we can. We've dismantled their infrastructure, captured the leaders, and exposed their operations. If anything happens again, we'll handle it. Together." His words reassured me, but I knew vigilance would always be necessary. The city might be safe now, but the shadows never completely disappear. They lurk, waiting for the faintest opening, and only constant awareness prevents them from returning. Amid the ongoing work, I took a moment for reflection, walking alone through the park where the city's early risers strolled. The sun shone softly through the trees, birds chirped in the distance, and the hum of life continued as if nothing had happened. It was surreal, this normalcy, this calm, after months of fear and chaos. I thought about the people we had lost, the betrayals we had endured, and the battles that had tested us in every conceivable way. And yet, I also thought about the bonds we had strengthened, the trust rebuilt, and the courage that had carried us through. Sometimes survival isn't just about enduring danger. It's about reclaiming life, step by step, from the ruins left behind. Even as peace returned, small reminders of the storm lingered. A sudden knock on the door, a mysterious message on a secure line, or an unusual pattern in the city's activity could still send a shiver down my spine. But unlike before, I now had the skills, allies, and resolve to face whatever came next. Fear no longer ruled me. It guided me, sharpened my instincts, and reminded me that vigilance is the price of freedom. Hassan joined me on the bench where I sat, quietly observing the sunrise. "Do you think we'll ever truly be free?" he asked softly. I smiled faintly, feeling the weight of experience and wisdom. "Free? Maybe not completely. But we'll be ready. We've survived the worst, and that's something no one can take away." He nodded, a sense of peace settling over him. For the first time in months, I felt that same peace myself, a fragile, hard-earned calm that came from knowing we had faced the shadows and emerged stronger. Khalid eventually joined us, and together we watched the city wake, our silhouettes blending with the morning light. The storm had passed, but the lessons remained. Trust, vigilance, courage, and unity were our most powerful weapons. And as we prepared to move forward, rebuilding our lives and the city we had fought to protect, I realized that sometimes surviving the storm is just the beginning. What comes after, the rebuilding, the reflection, the choice to trust again, is where true strength is forged. The shadows of the past may linger, but we were no longer powerless. We had emerged from the storm, scarred but unbroken, and ready to face whatever the future might hold. The storm had passed, but its echoes lingered. Tonight, Amina would realize that surviving wasn't enough. True victory came from reclaiming life, rebuilding trust, and embracing the dawn of a world she had fought to save. The city woke under a sky brushed with gold and pink, its streets alive with movement, laughter, and the ordinary rhythm of life. From my window, I watched the sunrise, a symbol of renewal and possibility. After months of danger, betrayal, and fear, this moment felt surreal, peaceful, almost impossible. Beside me, Hassan stirred, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He looked older somehow, shadows of sleepless nights etched faintly on his face, but there was a calm determination in his gaze. The weight of past mistakes lingered, yet he seemed lighter, unburdened by the guilt that had threatened to consume him. "You're up early," I said softly, breaking the silence. Hassan smiled faintly. "Couldn't sleep. Feels different now. Like we can finally breathe." I nodded, feeling the same way. The battles, the betrayals, and the endless nights of tension were behind us, or at least behind the immediate threat. What remained now was the task of rebuilding. Not just the city, but ourselves, our lives, and the fragile bonds we had fought so hard to protect. Khalid arrived shortly after, carrying coffee and a quiet energy that suggested he, too, was adjusting to this new reality. "Morning," he said, placing a cup beside me. "The city is calmer today. Fewer threats, fewer shadows. It's almost normal." I smiled, though the word normal felt foreign. Nothing about the past months had been normal. Yet Khalid's presence, steady and unwavering, reminded me that together we had survived, and that survival had forged something stronger than fear. We spent the morning reviewing the final reports. Every remnant of the network had been neutralized or captured. Evidence had been handed over to authorities, ensuring that the city would remain safe. For the first time, the word completed carried real meaning. Even as victory was certain, personal reconciliation became a priority. Hassan and I took the time to address the fractures left by betrayal. Words were spoken, truths, apologies, and promises. The process wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Trust had been broken, and while it could never be rebuilt instantly, it could be nurtured slowly, deliberately. "I'm sorry," Hassan said quietly, his eyes holding mine. "For everything, the lies, the fear. I never wanted to hurt you. I only wanted to protect you." I reached out, placing my hand over his. "I know. And I've learned something too. Sometimes protection isn't about hiding the truth, even from someone you love. It's about standing together, facing the danger, and trusting each other." There was a long pause, filled only by the sound of the city waking below. And then, for the first time in months, a genuine smile appeared on both our faces. Khalid, ever practical, reminded us that our mission had created more than enemies. It had also forged alliances and friendships. Community leaders, law enforcement, and even ordinary citizens had risen to support our cause once they understood the scope of the threat. Rebuilding these relationships and ensuring the city's resilience became the next focus. "We've done something extraordinary," Khalid said, pacing slightly. "Not just surviving, but reshaping the balance. The city owes us, in ways it may never fully realize." I laughed softly. "I just hope it remembers the names of those who fought in the shadows. The ones who weren't in the headlines but carried the weight of the fight every day." Khalid nodded. "We'll make sure it does. And more importantly, we'll make sure it thrives." Over the following weeks, life began to regain rhythm. The city's pulse quickened, yet beneath it, vigilance remained. We knew the past months had changed us irrevocably. Shadows may return and challenges may arise, but the experience had forged a resilience that nothing could easily break. I took time to reconnect with my own life, simple pleasures, quiet moments, and the freedom to choose without fear. Hassan and I walked through familiar streets, savoring the sunlight, the laughter of children, and the unassuming normalcy that had once seemed impossible. Khalid, ever the guardian, remained vigilant but allowed himself moments of rest, sharing jokes and quiet moments with us that reminded us we were more than survivors. We were friends, partners, and family forged by fire. Even as peace settled, I knew the lessons of the storm would never leave me. Fear, betrayal, and danger had tested every part of me. And yet, they had also revealed strengths I never knew I possessed: courage, resilience, and the unwavering power of trust. One evening, as we stood on a rooftop watching the city lights flicker to life, I spoke quietly. "We've survived the storm, but life doesn't stop for peace. We have to keep going, keep growing, and keep protecting what matters." Hassan placed his arm around my shoulders. "And we will. Together." Khalid joined us, the three of us silhouetted against the skyline. "The future is ours to shape. Shadows may linger, but we decide how they affect us." The city below seemed to hum with possibility, each light a reminder that life goes on, that hope persists, and that the battles we fight shape not just our survival, but our legacy. In the days that followed, we began rebuilding, both literally and metaphorically. Neighborhoods affected by the network's influence received support. Families were reunited. Justice was served. And slowly, the scars of the past months began to fade, replaced by resilience, community, and a quiet hope. I reflected on the journey, the fear, the betrayal, the adrenaline, and the constant uncertainty. It had tested every limit, every trust, and every bond. But it had also shown me the power of determination, love, and partnership. And as I stood there, the wind brushing my face and the city alive beneath me, I understood that surviving the storm was not the end. It was a beginning. A beginning where choices mattered, trust was hard-earned but sacred, and courage was measured not by the absence of fear, but by the will to act despite it. As the sun rose fully, bathing the city in light, I realized that the past months had changed us irrevocably, but in the best way possible. Shadows would always exist, danger would always lurk, and life would always demand vigilance. Yet we had survived, thrived, and reclaimed our lives. Together, Hassan, Khalid, and I had faced the impossible, confronted betrayal, and dismantled a network that threatened countless lives. And now, as the first true morning of peace broke over the city, we knew that no matter what came next, we had the strength, courage, and unity to face it. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't just surviving. It's choosing to rise, to rebuild, and to embrace the light of a new dawn. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I believed we truly could.